Recording live in the Lucky Number 7 Lounge, this is Dine Drink Vegas, the podcast by and for everybody stuck at home, wishing they were in the land of neon lights and bad decisions. I'm your host, John, also known as the Baller on a Budget, and you've stumbled into episode number 87, where we're going to bring you some tasty booze and Las Vegas news. Before we could do that, it's time to make an introduction. Yes, the man who's been hand signaling me that I am, in fact, number one. Of course, I mean the high roller, formerly of the High Plains, the leader in the luxury lounge, the king of comps, the Alabama slammer, the man who is always waiting on that limo to take him away to his next luxurious Las Vegas resort, unless he's dragging him sorry self back to the dusty plains of West Texas. I mean, Bill. Good evening, Bill. How are you, sir?
Good evening, John. I am fantastic. How are you, brother?
Well, I'd be doing better, except I'm dyslexic and I have to decipher the name of the man who invented our drink of the day. But are you ready to talk about the cocktail?
I'm ready to drink the cocktail, and if the price of drinking the cocktail is to talk about it, then so be it.
Okay, well, you can go ahead and start taking a couple of sips. Let me give the audience the rundown. Tonight's cocktail is called the Evening Edition. Now, we were looking for something a little out of the norm, but still in the ballpark of things that Bill usually likes, although based on that face, we may not have found that. The Evening Edition was invented by Joe Snitchcomb at the St. Leo Lounge in Oxford, Mississippi. Now, that bar is housed in a former newspaper building, thus the name Evening Edition. The standard ingredients are an ounce and a half of bourbon. No brand is specified in the recipe, near as I could figure. Three, half an ounce of chinar or cynar, if you want to be rustic about it. 3/4 of an ounce of coffee, 5 dashes of Angostura, and then it says garnish with coffee beans. I went differently, but you put all those in your shaker, you shake it with ice. Now, you could just dump everything into your rocks glass ice and all, or you could strain it into a larger ice cube, which is what I did. But, Bill, I'm looking at your face. I have a feeling there is a B word that is going to begin your tasting notes.
This is the drink of sadness on the morning after in Vegas when you know you need either a coffee or another alcoholic hair of the dog drink, and you decide to do both at the same time and you swing and you miss. Like this, it's not a super complicated drink. It was easy to make. I made it exactly to specification. It is better now that it's a little bit cold and thus a little bit watered down, but that is super bitter and it is not a thing I enjoy. It's kind of like an espresso martini went wrong. And anticipating this, because I had a tiny sip before the show, I've got a sugar package here, and I'm gonna see if sweetening this drink makes it somehow less horrific.
Well, stop for a second before you do that because I do want to see what bourbon you went with and what coffee you went with.
I went with Old Forester, just the standard 86 proof bourbon, because that's what the ABC stores have at an excellent price. Like it's my everyday drinker. Is it my favorite bourbon? It is not. But if I'm going to mix it with two, three, four other ingredients, I don't want to have a $70 bottle of bourbon in a drink.
Fair.
Um, the Chinar is the stuff you brought me when you were
Right.
here in January. And by the way, that is the last of that. I will bring you your bottles back when I'm home next week, along with some Irish whiskey. You're welcome. Um,
Thank you.
so the coffee was, and sure, this could have been a mistake, but I just used some veranda blend out of a K cup, right?
Okay.
Like I poured in 3/4 of an ounce, because I didn't want to make just a whole pot. It is 7:14 in the evening. Making a whole pot of coffee would make me legally obligated to drink it, and then that jacks up the rest of the evening.
Well, I'm going to let you start doctoring your drink. And while you add the sugar and we come back to see if sweetening it helped it, I'm going to say this, Bill. Mine is not as bitter as yours. It is a bitter forward drink, but there is a profound sweetness to mine. And I think I know why. Because I did two different things that zigged where you zagged. Number one, my bourbon is Old Granddad 114 proof, which means I've got a full alcohol, but also a very full flavor bourbon. And I do think having more of a bourbon backbone, bourbon's a sweet facing spirit, and I think that helps. But here's where I really think the difference is. I pulled a shot of a medium light roasted espresso. I got the espresso luminoso from Elan Coffee Roasters. I pulled a fresh shot about an hour before I made the drink. I sealed that in a mason jar, stuck it in the freezer to flash chill it. But the reason I say that is because K cup coffees tend to be over extracted. You don't really have a whole lot of grounds in there. And as a result, coffee from a K cup tends to be a little more bitter than other brew methods. Espresso is very intense and there is bitterness to it, but the natural sweetness of the coffee comes through because it's not diluted. So I did use the 3/4 of an ounce. That means the other half ounce, I just drank that as straight espresso. And don't get me wrong, this is a bitter cocktail, but there's also a sweetness to it. I will say the other thing I did was I garnished with a lemon peel and the pop of the bright lemon, because I let that peel soak for a few minutes before I tasted that little bit of citrus cutting through. I find this to be a beautifully balanced drink, but I could definitely see where this could be too bitter in a big hurry.
So I get that, and I absolutely concede the point that a better quality coffee would have made a difference here. Um, I don't know that it would have made enough difference for me to enjoy it. Like I don't. The only coffee alcohol drink I have is like coffee with Baileys or
Right.
something like that. Now I will make my wife an espresso martini sometimes, and she'll enjoy that. So like I know how to do the drink, just fundamentally not a thing I care for. I will say putting in that brown sugar package here, it did not make the drink good, but it made it survivable. Like I can finish this without hating myself. And it turns out we got a podcast for another half hour or so, which means I need a drink.
Oh, no, that's fair. I will say the one tasting note I keep getting with this, it weirdly reminds me of Guinness, and you hate Guinness.
That yes, that is exactly what's happening here.
So I
Yeah.
think listeners, if you like Guinness, give an evening edition a try. If you hate Guinness, pass this one by. Fair?
I think that is a 100% accurate description because when Rachel and I toured the Guinness factory, I don't know, a year and a half ago now in Dublin, they talked about roasting it and coffee notes and whatever. Like that's a thing
Yeah.
they talk about there. Side note, the Guinness people don't own the land that their brewery is on. They have it on, I think it is a 9,000 year lease.
Wow, that's pretty good lease. That's a
Yeah,
pretty good lease.
with a
Yeah.
price set in the 18th century. So they're good to go.
Yeah. I will say, if listeners don't know, your point about the toasted barley in Guinness and other dark beers, porters, stouts, that kind of thing, tasting like coffee. In fact, some coffee substitutes, including Postum, use roasted grains in place of coffee beans because at a certain point, think about it this way: the difference between a fresh slice of sourdough bread, a toasted slice of sourdough bread, and then a burnt piece of sourdough bread. Once you get to that burnt stage, all burnt bread tastes the same. It's the Maillard reaction. That's what we're getting here. So, yeah, I wish you liked this one, Bill, but I'm glad we gave it a shot.
I'm actually glad I gave it a shot because sometimes you got to swing and a miss to know if there is something you don't particularly enjoy. But is it time to share the news with our listeners, John?
We probably should. You did the first one. How about we kick that to you?
Fair enough. So in episode 86, we reported that Raiders' number one draft pick Fernando Mendoza is having to adjust to life under center rather than in the shotgun, which is where he was in college. However, early reports are that he's actually doing it quite well. While he's admitted to having to learn the footwork, he's also putting in the work to make it happen. It's been widely reported that during minicamp, he gathered his offensive line in a hotel room to take extra snaps from under center, which has got to be the weirdest football practice ever, John. And linemen such as Aggie great Trey Zune praise his team leadership skills. So it strikes me that he's making a great first impression on his teammates, John. How soon do you think he actually sees the field for the Raiders?
I'm going to put, if the over under is on week 8, I think I take the under, but just barely. I think Kirk Cousins starts the season. I think you want to get a veteran out there, make sure that they've added new pieces to the line, make sure the line's going to hold. You don't want to, blow out the MCL and ACL of your brand new franchise QB in week 1 or 2. But I think if he continues to progress like this and the line proves they can block, I think you see him out there during the first half of the season.
Well, and I mean, Kirk Cousins is his upside as good as Mendoza? It is not, but he's a heck of a guy to have in there to get you through until your number one draft pick is ready, right? Like I think that's exactly who you want to have right now if you're the Raiders, because he's not somebody you're going to build a franchise around, but he's also not terrible, right? Like he can get you to that point where Mendoza's ready.
So, last point on this, Bill, I wanted you to read the story because I've noticed something 2 episodes in a row now. This is the biggest poop I've ever seen you give about pro football in the history of our friendship. Is this just for the show, or is there a chance we may be seeing a budding Las Vegas Raiders fan in the making?
So baseball will always be my sport, and if I'm going to pick a Las Vegas sports team, it's going to be baseball. I see your point. I mean, I'll report on a story going on at the circus because we report on the significant news stories from Las Vegas. Doesn't mean I'm going to go in there without multiple penicillin shots. To be clear, if y'all want to go to a Raiders game sometime when we're there, I 100% will go. I think that would be a fantastic experience. Um, Usually on Sundays in the fall, I am recovering from the choices I made on Saturdays during the fall, which is when the games I care about happen.
Okay, well, that's fair. It may just be that peated Scotch whiskey in the NFL may be two things that I may never get you to like. That won't stop me from being Sam I am, but to try to sell you this green eggs and ham. But I appreciate the effort. All right, moving on. According to Fox 5 Las Vegas, the following a 3 month pop up last summer, which we did cover on this podcast, NADC Burger, which stands for Not a Damn Chance, from Michelin starred Philippe Franklin Lee, maybe Philip. I thought I saw Michelin and I went French. And skateboarder Neen Williams has opened up a permanent location on 6th Street near the Fremont Street Experience. They have two items on the menu: a 100% Wagyu double burger and beef tallow fries. Bill, that is the essence of simplicity. I know we talked about last episode, don't necessarily crave burgers in Vegas because you can get burgers at home. But is this burger special enough to get your attention?
So, yeah, it actually might be. And I think though, I don't think it's a meal I plan. I think it's one of those where we're like, it's 11 at night because we're old men. So for us, that's the end of the night. We're like, dang it, we're hungry. We need some calories to power through. And normally we go to one of the great pizza places downtown. I think I go give this a shot. For one thing, beef tallow fries are fantastic.
Oh, yeah.
And I can pretend it's a luxury burger. I will say, and I'm gonna editorialize because it's a thing we do on this show. I think Wagyu in a hamburger is the far end of stupid. Like Wagyu makes sense if you're having a nice steak. I'm not sure why you would do that with a hamburger because it seems like a waste. But I bet at 10 or 11 at night when you've been making choices in Vegas all day, it is phenomenal. I would 100% do that.
I will say this. I mean, when you buy Wagyu, even if it's not A5, even if it's a lower grade of Wagyu, and you pay that premium price, you want the best cut of the critter. That means by necessity, there's going to be a lot of waste and trim. I can think of worse things than a burger for that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's just that I mean, the reason that you have Wagyu is because you want all the fat. In a burger, the fat's gonna drain out, right? Like, that's how hamburgers work. So,
Okay, yeah.
I would eat it, but, like, all that delicious fat is going down on the fire.
Okay, that's fair. You have a point there. I will say I would be tempted to go here because of that location just off of 6th Street. This might be a really good lunch before you go hit up your barber shop at El Cortez.
Oh, yeah, no. It's like, this is the first time we've done a restaurant news thing on this podcast in a while where I'm like, "Yeah, I actually kinda have to do that," and it is not particularly close.
Yeah, yeah, I
Yeah.
agree.
All right. Well, in other news, with the Golden Knights and the Aces both advancing through their respective playoffs and the Raiders drafting Mendoza and the A's coming to town, John and I wanted to look at the overall impact of sports tourism on the Las Vegas economy. According to the Las Vegas Convention and Visitors Authority, in 2024, approximately 1.8 million visitors attended a sporting event during their stay. And I did the math on that. It actually works. If you've got 8 home games for the Raiders, that's 800,000 plus sold out basketball stadiums. Like the numbers check out. But that resulted in $3.6 billion in direct spending and a total economic impact of 5.7 billion. The same officials are still working on their 2025 numbers, but they believe they increased further still. So, John, it is clear to me that Las Vegas is becoming a legitimate sports town. How big of a sports town would it be if there wasn't also the gambling and everything else which is traditionally made at Las Vegas?
Well, I think at that point you're dealing with mostly a home crowd, and other metros, Vegas is what, around a million people.
Something like that, depending on what you count.
So I will say cities that size can pack arenas, but most cities that size don't have the full slate of pro sports. So I think a city of Las Vegas's size, if it wasn't a tourist mecca, might have one or two major league sports. They're going to have all four and then some. There's the tourism angle, and yes, the sports gambling angle definitely plays a part. I mean, if you're going to go to a road game for your team, do you want to go to Buffalo in December or do you want to go to Vegas?
Depends. Are you our friend Melissa or not?
Yeah, I don't care what Melissa thinks. I am not going to Buffalo in the winter, but
Uh,
I'll go to Vegas.
I'm not sure why you had to add that phrase in the winter, but sure, I am also
Okay.
not going to Buffalo.
Yeah.
Also, John, and I apologize for abandoning you, but I can't finish this drink. So while you read the next news story, I'm going to go pour it out, get myself a new ice cube, and pour whiskey over that ice, and then be done with it. I'll be right back.
Okay. So, speaking of sports, Scott at Vital Vegas reports that Vegas is getting an expansion team of the Professional Women's Hockey League. No word on a team name or permanent home, but the new team may debut at T Mobile Arena, the home of the NHL's Golden Knights. Now, Scott did point out that this particular league, the league owns all of the teams at this point. So the Golden Knights and the NHL will have no ownership stake at this stage in the game. It is not run the way the WNBA has an affiliation directly with the NBA. So this is interesting to me. Bill's not here, so I'm about to jump to the next news story. But I will say again, I like sports. I have not caught live sports in Vegas just because none of my trips have aligned with something I wanted to see. But I definitely would check this out. I do wonder, since it's going to be indoor hockey, if this becomes a summer sport instead of a winter sport so they don't compete with the men. All right. Oh, Bill is back good just in time. He can't hear me yet. Oh, now he's got his headphones on. Everybody don't tell him what I was saying. All right. Bill, any interest in seeing women's professional hockey in Vegas?
Uh, my guess is that the fights in that game are fantastic, and I already know you're talking about my health and beauty secrets, John. Don't be shy. But
Yeah,
yeah, my
true.
guess is that the fights in a women's hockey game would be amazing, and I would 100% go to that game. Also, my guess is any athlete on a hockey rink is going to be better than I am because I'm from where you're from and we don't skate. So you know what I'm not going to do is I'm not going to make fun of the women skating on that rink because I feel like that results in me getting my ass kicked and I don't particularly care for that. So I'm going to go ahead and not do it.
Yeah, no, I hear you. And look, I don't watch much hockey on TV because I don't think hockey is a great TV sport. I have been to a game live. I caught the Dallas Stars against the Chicago Blackhawks. It's a lot of fun. Hockey live is something else. I've always wanted to catch a Golden Knights game. I would absolutely go see whatever this women's team is if it just worked out that that fit into my trip schedule. I would not plan a trip to see women's hockey, but if I happen to be in town and the tickets aren't a terrible price, yeah, I'd check it out.
That makes sense. Well, in other news, TravelZork reported that a third of MGM's all inclusive packages have been purchased by first time visitors. Zork says that is a key target for casinos as new visitors tend to spend more money than those returning. We say this is huge because Vegas needs to be cultivating new guests to sustain itself under current economic conditions. So, John, as I read the story, I'm actually kind of surprised it's not higher. And here's why. When I was new to Vegas, I would have been very much drawn to an all inclusive package because I didn't know how things worked. Now that I know how things work in Vegas, I can almost always get myself a better deal just by piecing it out myself. So, what is your take? I mean, okay, so I'll back up. You, as an experienced Vegas traveler, what would it take to get you to book one of the all inclusive packages?
I'll be honest, Bill, the MGMs did not really get my attention when I looked at it. But if I did not have a milestone credit for having the MGM iconic card, I would have jumped on the all inclusive package at Resorts World for my upcoming trip with my wife. I've looked at booking the all inclusive package at the Plaza. There are some of these all inclusive packages I would go for. If you're not a high roller and you don't have big gambling comps, you go to Vegas for the food and the atmosphere. I think these are a great deal, even for the Vegas veteran. You just got to find the one that works for you.
All right, that makes sense. And to be clear, I'm not swearing them off. Like I we talked about this a couple episodes ago. I still look at them. Um it's just that early in my Vegas trip, I would have explicitly looked for them. Now they've kind of got to catch my attention to make me book them. Does that make sense?
It does. And I do think two things are going on to why only a third are new visitors. Three things. Number one, I don't see a lot of advertising for this outside of platforms where I look at so much Vegas, the algorithm is giving me Vegas. I have not seen a TV commercial during a major sporting event or national broadcast touting one of these packages. So I don't know if anybody is seeing these ads if they don't already have Vegas on their radar and the algorithm is feeding it to them. So I think that's number one of why you don't have as many newcomers latching onto this. I think number two, you have more returning visitors doing it. Precisely what we said about Vegas has gotten more expensive in the last couple of years, and the cost of everything else has too. People have less income. And if you're not a big gambler, you don't have big comps, you might have been thinking, I can't afford Vegas. I think a lot of people who've been wanting to go, but pinching their pennies, I think it caught some pin up demand.
All right, that absolutely makes sense to me. What else do we have, John?
Multiple sources reported that this summer there will be fireworks on the strip every Saturday night, imitating the strategy the Plaza, who's been doing the strategy from the Plaza downtown, which has been doing Friday night fireworks for the past 2 summers. That was easy for me to say.
Yeah. Yeah. Sorry, I was just going to let it go and I apologize. I may have been jumping ahead to the next story. So, I'm kind of curious about how well the fireworks on the strip are going to work because there's already so much of a visual display. Um I don't know whose money that's worth. The other thing is I mean, the views are going to be blocked by the tall buildings for a lot of places. So good for them. I hope that that works. I don't know how. I mean, if I happen to be outside when they're doing it, great. That makes zero difference in terms of how much I'm enjoying my trip to Vegas.
So I'm going to say this: I've been to Vegas for July 4th, and my wife and I were at the pool cabana at Caesars. We were laying in daybed, staring straight up into the sky. The view of the fireworks was beautiful, and the sound of the fireworks echoing off the towers surrounding us was just, you could feel it in your chest. Imagine if you were at, say, one of the high floor lounges that looks out over the strip, say maybe at the Vinyl Lounge that's about to reopen down there at the House of Blues at Mandalay Bay. I think there are some particular places where the view of these fireworks would just be spectacular.
All right. Well, maybe I am wrong. and I will give it a shot, right? Like I will try to go there and see some of that. Speaking of other things in Vegas that are worth seeing, I asked earlier today Google Gemini for a list of major events in Vegas this summer, and the concert scene seems like it's going to be busy. Performances and residencies in Las Vegas this summer include No Doubt, Kenny Chesney, Mary J. Blige, Rod Stewart, Blake Shelton, New Kids on the Block, and Billy Idol. So I guess my question, John, is why is it that Hangin' Tough is your famous or your favorite New Kids on the Block album?
No, we know that that is not what I would go to. I would go to Billy Idol because if you've seen me on Fremont, I'm always dancing with myself. Oh.
So, in a serious question, which one of those concerts would you be most likely to go to? Would it be the Billy Idol one?
No, no. If I could make it there, the No Doubt show at the Sphere, 100%.
Right.
I cannot get there during this residency. There's not none of the dates where they have a show. Either my calendar won't let me go, or those particular weekends are so expensive, my bank account won't let me go. There are weekends I could afford, but I'm busy. And the weekends I'm not busy, I can't afford. But if I could go see No Doubt, that would be it. Look, I am the one guy that still thinks ska is cool. I know everybody says it's the music a 13-year-old hears when he's microwaving his pizza pockets, but I like ska, dadgummit, and I've been a No Doubt fan since Tragic Kingdom.
So I would go to a Kenny Chesney concert, and it's not just because I like pop country more than you do. It is because the first concert Rachel and I went to was in the spring sometime of 2003, and we didn't have a lot of money and we couldn't afford to go. We were living in Lubbock at the time. We couldn't afford to go, but for my birthday, she got us tickets to the Kenny Chesney concert. And we went, we had a fantastic time. Um, whatever. And I don't know that I've been back to a really major concert since then. So I would go to the Kenny Chesney concert just because of the warm emotional chord it strikes. We got Rachel got me tickets there when that was not a thing we were able to afford.
So that's a good Bill. That's an amazing story, and I don't hate Kenny Chesney. I mean, granted, he's what happens if you order Jimmy Buffett off of Timu, but that's endearing. My real question in all of this: at what point do they have to not call themselves New Kids on the Block?
Uh, I think when they lose their rights, because even though they are roughly our age, as long as the checks keep clearing, they're going to call themselves whatever makes more checks clear.
Listen, if what's hanging tough on you is a pair of Depends, you're now the old men on the block. That's all I'm saying.
That is a totally fair point. But at least there's some other music news in Las Vegas, John.
EDC Las Vegas should be starting just as this episode drops. The Electronic Dance Music Festival is scheduled for Las Vegas Motor Speedway, May 15th through the 17th. Bill, do you have any interest in being at EDC?
Uh, Not really, except for the fact that apparently our buddy Mike got a really good show once walking up and down the strip before EDC, I don't know, like 10 years ago, right? When we as a group were first starting to go to Las Vegas. So I wouldn't mind watching, I don't want to go to the show. I wouldn't mind going for the people watching. Does that make
Oh yeah.
sense?
No, yeah, that totally makes sense. It's like that time that we went and there was the horror convention, not horror convention, horror
I'm
convention.
sure there was that too.
It is Vegas, but at the Plaza, do you remember seeing some of the crowd coming in and out of that
Mm-hmm.
one? Yeah, that
Mm-hmm.
was a lot of fun.
That was fun. Well, in other news, according to KSNV, the Hard Rock Las Vegas is now hiring a senior vice president of gaming operations, a senior vice president of player development, and multiple other senior leadership roles. The reason John and I are reporting this is as a sign that the new casino really does appear on track to open by late 2027, even if we're both super upset that we're not going to be making hundreds of thousands of dollars to assume any of those roles. So, yeah, John, it's I mean, we've talked about the Hard Rock before. We know we both want to go there. I guess here's my question about the Hard Rock. They're keeping their old Mirage Tower too, right?
Right.
So, How much more are you willing to pay to stay in the fancy new guitar tower?
Ooh, that is a really good question. And without a baseline for knowing what those rooms are going to cost, I have a hard time answering it. Let me put it this way. I want to stay in one of those tower rooms because you're going to have a phenomenal view up and down the strip looking out those windows. If I were going to spend 3 weeks at the Hard Rock and the only way I could make it 3 days at the Hard Rock and the only way I could make it work was to do one night in the tower and the other two in the older end of the building, I would do that just to have the night with the view. I really want to see that view.
All right, that actually makes good sense to me. I guess I've just got such a soft spot for the older Tower of the Mirage anyway, because they've got some just phenomenal suites, which my guess is they're in the process of refreshing. And baller on a budget tip, up until whenever they shut down a couple of years ago, those suites were some of the best deals on the Las Vegas Strip. They're going to be getting updated and refreshed. But oddly, I don't think that's going to make their price go up because everybody's going to want to stay in the new tower. So I think, John, if it's 2 years from now and you're going to Vegas, you should absolutely look at what some of those premium rooms are like in the old Mirage Tower. I think that's where the discounts are.
Yeah, I totally agree. I also think that if I can't afford anything because the demand's too high in that building, I stay at TI and walk over and enjoy all the amenities on the new property.
100%. What else do we have going on, John?
We've reported before about a downturn amongst low stakes gamblers in Las Vegas. However, multiple sources are reporting a hiring event was held at the Golden Nugget on May 12th. I assume a hiring for dealers. Is that correct, Bill?
For dealers, for servers, for essentially every kind of service personnel. And the reason I put that on the run sheet is the fact that there is at least some hiring still going on. Now, what I want to believe, and I have zero evidence for this, what I want to believe is that's because Ambassador Fertitta believes that he is about to expand onto the Las Vegas Strip by buying Caesars and he kind of wants to expand his empire. What is more likely is simply that the Golden Nugget needs more people to run their routine operations. So I still don't think that Las Vegas is as completely healthy as it might have been in, say, 2019, but I'm pretty encouraged by the fact that there is some hiring activity.
Yeah, I agree. That is an encouraging sign. I do like your theory, and we may off road on a little speculation here, Bill. I do like
I
the theory, though, that if you are the Landry's organization, the ambassador and staff, and you really do think that you are going to walk away from the Caesars feeding frenzy with at least one or more properties, and you're going to want to send over some of your golden nugget leadership, pit bosses, senior dealers, people that understand your organization's way of doing business. You're going to have to backstop those employees with fresh blood downtown. And you don't want to wait until you're making those staffing decisions for the strip to beef up staff. I think that's a good sign that he thinks he's coming away with at least one property. So, Bill, I want to play a little fantasy game, assuming that
can we do
Tillman,
that on the air? Because like our wives may listen to this.
well, we're only audio only. It's fine.
All
No,
right.
assuming that Mr. Fertitta can only get a hold of two of the Caesars properties. Let's say Carl Icon's group buys the whole thing and Tillman just buys a part. Which two Caesars properties would you most want to see taken over by the Golden Nugget? And who would you want for some of the other properties?
So I'm going to answer two questions. One is the question you asked, which two would I want? And the second question, and I don't think I can answer the who else thing. The second question I'm going to answer is what I expect to see happen under that scenario. So the golden nugget harkens back to a day of themes, right? Like, we've got this golden nugget like shaped like a hand right there in the lobby. And on the one hand, that kind of sort of goes with the ambiance of the main Caesar's palace, but that's the crown jewel. And if there's anything that Icon's money is going to be able to get, it's that. So I would want to see him take over um the Paris because it's again an old icon where you've got like a feature designed to draw people in. I would want to see him do the Paris and then something lower end. So you've got two different price points on the strip. So the Paris and maybe I don't know, pick one, Harrah's, Ben, whatever, right? In terms of what I would expect to see, I would expect if he doesn't get all of them, it's going to be because Carl Icahn bid more money. If Carl Icahn bid more money and doesn't want the whole kit and caboodle, then he's going to be least interested in those which are generating the least revenue, which I would presume to be those lower down the Caesar's economic scale. So some of those ones, if you're going from south to north, so you're heading north on the strip, some of those on your right as you get towards the north end of the strip, that complex of properties, that's what I would expect to see Ambassador Fertitta wind up getting. How about you, John?
So I started to say too, and I was thinking about that, and I hear what you're saying. I want to change what I was going to say because I was going to say Paris and the Horseshoe.
Hmm?
But as I think about everything you said, and if he's only going to get one, here's what I think. I think he ought to jump on Planet Hollywood and rebrand it. I think Planet Hollywood makes sense because it also comes with the Miracle Mile Mall. And that's an opportunity. If you think about the wide range of dining portfolios that the Landry's Group maintains, they have a range from very high end to very affordable, moving some of the high end dining options that are in their portfolio into whatever they're going to call Planet Hollywood. And then in that mall, having some of their more affordable options be in there would make an awful lot of sense. Plus, the property he owns that he was going to build the post oak on is right next door where the old Hawaiian market was. So he already owns land right next door to Planet Hollywood and the Miracle Mile shops. I think that's where I'd want him to go. But Bill, if that's where we'd like to see Tillman, we both gave answers. Is there anybody else that currently operates in Vegas that you'd like to see snatch up a space?
Um, no. However, other okay, so I'd love to see the Treasure Island have more than one property, but I'm taking this question in a radically different direction. So far, we've thought of the Las Vegas Strip as being a battle between MGM and Caesars. What I think would be phenomenal is if instead the Las Vegas Strip became a restaurant battle between Landry's and the Pappas family and all of their chains of restaurants because I am here for it. And listeners, if you're not from Texas, I'm sorry. If you are from Texas, you already understand what I just said.
No, I get that. I think that would be fun, but I'm going to throw one out, and I bet I could change your mind on you're not interested in any other operator. I want you to imagine a scenario where Derek Stevens and his brother buy the Link and the Flamingo because the Link Promenade is already sort of a sister to the Fremont Street experience. And imagine bringing that circa D Golden Nugget vibe to the strip. And that gets to your point about wanting your comps to work downtown or the strip.
No, that does it. I guess the reason I wasn't thinking in that direction is I'm already granting the Golden Nugget ownership of at least one of the properties there. So if there's another way to connect the strip and the downtown, then great.
Yeah, I agree.
Right.
I mean, I would love to see the Plaza do something, but I don't think they will. I think their most likely acquisition is the downtown Grand.
I think that's an excellent point. Well, John, before I read our last news story of the night, before we go to the outro of the show, I do want to preview what we're doing for the next episode because I'm traveling some and I want to let our listeners know what to expect. But first, our last news story of tonight. So, in its sad news, Dolly Parton's long delayed residency in Las Vegas has been canceled as one of America's favorite Southern belles fights ongoing health issues. And this makes me sad, John, because was I probably going to go to the concert? I was not. But it is such a positive, bright, shining personality. I would like to see good things for her. And I join so many Americans in wishing her all the very best as she recovers, so that maybe there is some other Vegas residency down the road.
Yeah, Bill, I completely agree. I just don't want anything to happen to Dolly. She's now we are showing our old Southern dude through and through, but dad gummit, I love me some Dolly.
Yeah, no, that is just a thing. So, one other thing, listeners, before we start to wrap up this episode, because we've got a couple other things we like to do at the end of each episode, but John, I do want to let you know what's coming up. So, I am going to be out of town next week. I'll actually be in Johnstown as my youngest son graduates high school. I feel like that's a thing I should probably attend. What that means is our production schedule is going to be a little bit off, which means in episode 88. So, this episode 87 and episode 88, news is going to be a little bit harder. We're going to do as much as we can, but we're going to have to record early. So, John, can you tell our listeners about what our feature story is going to be for episode 88?
Absolutely. Stripstumble.com a couple of months ago dropped a guide to tipping in Las Vegas. And Bill and I are going to spend some time going back and forth and really hashing out what we think Strip Stumble got right and what they got wrong.
Yeah, but listeners, we appreciate so much those of you who've been around for a long time. It means a lot as we grow an audience. For those of you who are here for the first time, welcome. We hope you will become part of our community. And we hope you will come back for episode 88 because while our normal format is Drink of the Day, which will always continue, normally after that we go into news and sometimes there's a feature story. I'm betting that most of episode 88 is going to be whatever drink of the day we come up with. And by we, I mean John comes up with just for the sole purpose of torturing me, followed by that feature story on what constitutes appropriate tipping in Las Vegas.
Yeah, probably so. Although, if there is any big late breaking news after we record, I can do some solo news stories so our listeners don't miss out. But yeah, there it will be light on the news.
You do so many things solo, John. I trust you can pull it off.
Been working that way since I was 12. All right, Bill, on that note, let's bring this episode in for a landing. Why don't you tell the listeners where they can find more exciting Dine, Drink, Travel, and Dine, Drink Vegas content?
Folks, traditionally, you've looked for us on YouTube at Dine Drink Vegas, and we still have some videos there, but we are increasingly moving our YouTube platform to Dine Drink Travel, where we bring you short and focused videos which help you plan your next trip. Something like 5 or 10 minutes on a particular hotel room or a particular restaurant, an airport executive lounge, or occasionally things like my trips to Ireland or the cruises that John and I and our families have taken. You can also find me on every social media platform at Dine Drink Travel, but the most important of those is probably X because that's where John tells me how wrong I am about everything.
And I'm at Dine Drink John. I'm happy to talk to you about travel to Las Vegas, about all things in my beloved home state of Texas. Tasty adult beverages, amazing handcrafted third wave specialty coffee, and the Dallas Cowboys, who so far are giving me hope. And as we learned from Ted Lasso, it's the hope that kills you. We're so glad you took the time to listen to our episode. If you enjoy what we're doing, please, please, please copy that link, share it out to all of your friends on social media, especially your friends that are planning a trip to Vegas or your mortal enemies that hate listening to old fat white guys drink and talk. Either way, you're helping us grow an audience, and that will keep us bringing you this podcast week after week, month after month, and year after year. Once again, thanks for listening, and until the next episode, happy travels.
So, while we're still recording, John, I just want you to know that that drink was objectively terrible, and it was way better to just pour bourbon in a glass.
Do you always say short and focused when you talk about videos because that's what your high school girlfriend called you?
Uh, I mean, I love how you think I had a girlfriend in high school.